क्या मन के लिए लिखने वाले अब जेब के लिए लिखने लगे? हमारा अगला सेशन इसी के ऊपर है, आर वी राइटर्स विदाउट स्टोरीज। इस सेशन को मॉडरेट करने वाले हैं मिस्टर हितेश केवलिया। ही इज एन एक्लेम्ड राइटर डायरेक्टर हु इज नोन फॉर शुभ मंगल सावधान, शुभ मंगलम ज़्यादा सावधान। He won the Filmfare and IFA Award for Best Dialogue for Subh Mangal Savdhan, an alumnus of National Institute of Design Film Department. He has worked across various mediums, radio, illustrative magazines, television, films, and now OTT. I welcome Mr. Hitesh Kewalya to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Dibanchan. So, are we writers without stories? Guys, please be silent. Thank you. इस panel discussion के लिए we have 4 very eminent guests. I'll call upon them. Sridhar Rangayan, filmmaker, activist, and founder, festival director of Kashish Mumbai International Queer Film Festival. His films, The Pink Mirror and Yours Emotionally, have been considered groundbreaking because of their realistic and sympathetic portrayal of the largely closeted Indian gay community. He's also known for films like Breaking Free and Evening Shadows. Welcome, Sridhar. Our next panelist is Atika Chohan, a journalist from Delhi who has written for The Hindu before moving on to CNN IBN. Her search for expression of her voice continued in the world of screenwriting with works like Margarita with a Straw, followed by Waiting, Guilty. Her film Chapak traces the life of an acid attack survivor, Lakshmi Agarwal, and traces the events that led to the amendment of India's acid laws. Atika, thanks for being here. Mr. Soumen Mishra, Head of Creative Department, Dharma Productions, Head of Fiction, Dharmatic Entertainment. He's known for his work as a creative producer in the film Sher Shah, anthology Ajeeb Dastans, and Guilty, popularly known as the bridge between Dharma and Warsaw, and for standing solidly behind fresh voices in the world of screenwriting. Welcome, Soumen. Next in line is our very own Saiwyn Quadras. Like all of us, he's a screenwriter who, even after writing films like Mary Kom, Parmanu, and Neerja, he's still finding answer to the question, who am I? He's also a vociferous fighter for writers' rights and a member of the executive committee of SWA. Okay, guys. I want to start with the writers first. I'll come to the producer later. But are we really writers without stories? क्या हम अपनी कहानियाँ नहीं बोल पाते हैं, बोलना भूल गए हैं, या जानते ही नहीं हैं? I want to ask the writers here a direct question, and I want a direct answer.
So basically, when I was told that this is the topic of our discussion here with my favorite writers, I was a little confused because I was literally almost on the verge of declining this because I was like, this really triggers my imposter syndrome. And this is a difficult one to deal in front of hundreds of people because this is exactly the kind of existential crisis that I've had since the beginning now and maybe forever. Self-doubt is a constant friend. And thank you for like really reinforcing it with this panel because now I'm like feeling extremely exposed and this feels like I'm talking to the mirror. So yeah. But I would like to believe that I've shared this kind of syndrome with a lot of great writers. And that's the only common thing between me and Kaufman, that we are both like full of self-doubt. But when you say that are we really writers without stories or without a voice, it's a very complicated and a very complex answer. there are two aspects to any kind of story. Like storytelling is basically made of two words. There's a story, and then there's telling of it. I think in 15 years, the industry has manjod me, and I'm using a Hindi word here. I don't think I learned it from my womb how to tell stories, but this industry has given me the know-how of how to tell stories for how they want it to be told. Uh, am I am I the wiser for it? I think so. I'm extremely grateful as I look back at my 15-year career, and I'm only speaking for myself, is that I had no hope in hell to have films out or like to have any career. Like I began with just a lot of emotion and rage and anger and just trying to summatoing my own situation, and I was processing it through writing. So I don't know when did I learn the knack of structuring what I want to say. So as I look back at my career with my naive understanding of things, is that there are two aspects to anything. One is a story and one is a telling of it. And am I good at crafting? I'm not saying I'm the best, but I'm definitely like industry seasoned. Because I've done this consistently without fail for 15 years. I don't know a single day in my life for the last 20 years without a deadline. And that much work is not out there. But am I an industry rat? Well, gladly, I am. Like, I'm so proud I am an industry rat. So these are the two ways of dealing with it. Is my original voice crippled in the process? This is a larger question that I think we should come to later with, like, at least my other colleagues should also take on this first query of yours. But yeah, that's my thing. Like, I do feel that I feel a little compromised with my original ideas not really finding way. But at the same time, I'm not bitter about being consistently employed by the industry.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a very, very, very interesting thing that you said. कि जब एक राइटर इस शहर में आता है, राइटर बनना चाहता है, तो सबसे पहले उसको एक वैलिडेशन की ज़रूरत होती है. जब चार लोग उसको कहते हैं कि नहीं तू अच्छा लिखता है, या कोई प्रोड्यूसर या कोई डायरेक्टर या कोई कहानी जब वो लिखता है, कहीं भी सुनाता है, उसको एक सुनने को मिलता है कि तू अच्छा लिखता है. उस वैलिडेशन के बाद उसको काम चाहिए होता है. वो काम जो उसका घर भी चलाए और वो करते हुए घर चलाए जो वो करना चाहता है, जिस हिसाब से करना चाहता है. पर कहीं ना कहीं मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि ये प्रोसेस इतना रूथलेस होता है, इतने रिजेक्शंस और इतने चक्कर मारने के बाद आपको जो काम मिलता है, आप उसको जैसा वो इंसान बोले, चाहे वो प्रोड्यूसर हो, वो एक्टर हो, या कोई भी जो वो फिल्म या बनाना चाहता है, आप भूल जाते हैं कि आप क्यों इस फील्ड में आए थे, क्यों आप स्क्रीन राइटर बनना चाहते थे. साइवन, आई वुड लाइक टू आस्क यू कि समवेयर in trying to learn the craft of screenwriting, have we forgotten the heart?
So the answer to your question is basically, are we are we writers without stories? Is, that middling yes and no. But personally speaking, when I came into the business, I just want to tell the stories that I want to say. So Marycom was an idea I pitched and I found takers for it. It took 4 years till the film came out and we found the right people and the planets aligned. And Marycom happened. Nirja was again a story that inspired me, and I managed to get producers and actors and directors for it. So for me, personally speaking, with even the other films that I have done, it's a battle, because if the story is my voice, then comes the structure, then comes the collaborators. Now those collaborators probably see what is in the structure and the screenplay and interpret it in a different manner. Sometimes is my voice supposed to be the biggest in it? Then at those points I will take a stand. But at some point, because it's a collaborative process, you then even look at what the other person is trying to interpret the voices, and probably it makes sense for the story. The bigger point is, what is the totality of it all? Is the fact that, oh, my voice is being drowned out And if it really is, you fight for it. But if it's your ego that's taking over and it comes in the middle of the collaborative process, then we need to introspect about that as well. Yes, as writers, we are possessive about the material that we create, but we are not writing a novel where the control is completely yours. There are many more partakers in the process, and we need to be cognizant of that fact. And every story, every screenplay, even if you are writing a Lord of the Rings or a Harry Potter or some fantasy movie, your voice is there. It comes in the scenes, it comes in the moments, it comes in the characters. So unless you completely compromised and given in to the producer or the director or the actor, and you're just a typist, then you're a writer without a voice. But most of the times, if you're confident about the material you are presenting to whoever it is, you'll be able to retain your voice. And there'll be many more voices that will join it, but then it becomes like a symphony. And that's when the film will look good, where you are satisfied and proud of the work that you've done, where you say that, yes, you fought for your voice to be retained, and it's there and it can be seen.
Very nicely said that you have to constantly fight for your stand. But Sridhar, you've always made films about things that you have always felt for. You run Kashish also. While fighting, did you feel that I want to give up? If no, then why? What pushed you to, no, I want to do it like this. I want to make this film. मुझे यही film बनानी है, मुझे ऐसे ही बनानी है. चाहे उसका कोई commercial sense में उसका कोई taker ना हो. So I would like you to.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're the topic itself is rhetorical. We are screenwriters because we have stories. We have stories, of course. And my personal stories basically are reflected in the work I do. Because I'm a gay man and I want to tell stories about my community. And I started long back, when I was writing television, I would introduce elements of homoeroticism in the characters because at that point of time, television didn't allow anything to do with LGBTQ stories. They would say, "Hamare family channel hai, hamare family stories chahiye." So no scope for anything. But I would introduce a character, two friends who are supposed to be friends. So bromance will happen. So these were basically ideas which were sown in even in the television days. And in 2001, I left television because there was no scope for telling my own stories. Started my own production company and then been making LGBTQ stories. So it's very difficult to continue to make films or tell your stories because there's so many doors which are shut. When you go to television channels, they said, हमारे ये stories valid नहीं है, हमारे audience के लिए LGBTQ stories अभी audiences तैयार नहीं है. कब तैयार होंगे अभी तक मालूम नहीं. 2022, even now, people still are not open to it. But I would say over the last 15 years or so, there's been more openness to telling these stories. And at Kashish Film Festival, which we run, we get 60 Indian LGBTQ films being submitted. 60. So many films are being made. Short films, documentaries, independent films. Mainstream film, भले एक दो होंगे. जैसे शुभ मंगल ज़्यादा सावधान, अभी recently बधाई दो. Very few mainstream LGBTQ films are being made, but basically there are a lot of short films, and that's where the hope is. Because short films जो है अपनी कहानी बिल्कुल साफ तरीके से बोलती है, candid होती है. They do not mask the entire thing for making it mainstream. They're honest, they're candid, and they tell the stories the way it should be. And also, what has happened is also the stories have evolved. Gone are the days मैं कौन हूँ, मैं क्यों हूँ, मेरे माँ बाप accept नहीं कर रहे. Those are over and done with. They're brushed out. So right now they're basically talking about relationships. Like Badai do basically talking about a lavender relationship, which is very unique. You don't really come to talk about such things. Or also, I would, from the short films, we actually have surreal or stories, or we have psychological thriller kind of stories, which are basically made. So I have a lot of hope right now, especially 2018 Supreme Court verdict ke baad. There's a lot more openness in the thing. But still, I would say the big fat gay film is not being made yet. We just hope that time will come where you're supposed to enjoy with the characters. I mean, you're supposed to laugh with them, not at them. that is the main thing we need to really focus on. How do we create characters where you can basically, they can have a reason to exist in the narrative? Of course, nowadays, a lot of web series basically are outside tokenism. They're including a gay or lesbian character just so that we are woke, that we are also saying the same thing. But do those characters have a certain reference point in the entire narrative or not? Do their stories matter in the entire narrative? These are questions which are being asked right now.
But that's how one will learn, unless and until, like when I was writing and making Shubh Mangal Zyada Savdhan, there was not a single person who came to me and said, no, very good. Everyone came and told me, why are you doing this as your first film? Why do you want to make it? And I knew that I was putting my neck on the line because I'm not from the LGBTQ community, yet I am trying to tell a story which I felt that the society or the people should see in a certain manner. Yes, may not ever be able to understand what a person from the community goes through while growing up in a North Indian city in India, but at least I'll be able to look at it from a human point of view, where gender doesn't matter. And I feel that the more we tell these stories, the more mistakes we make, the more we learn. So, Soumen, I want to come to you now. As a producer, do you get scripts on spec?
We get...
Which are written on spec, which are not commissioned by you?
I mean, far and few actually. Most of the times is stories. Because I think a lot of writers have realized that there's no point writing the full spec script because you'll be writing 120 pages, taking a long time to complete. It's better to see if the story works, because we don't know if the story is for short film or is it for web or is OTT or is it a theatrical. So for us also it's easier, for writers also it's easier to judge basis on the story, and then we decide where to take on.
But don't you think that a script is a better way to pitch to a producer? Because a story might be nice, but the way I'm telling it, like Atika said, there is a story and there is a telling. Telling is the craft of screenwriting, and when a writer is pitching to you, they should write the complete script, because while writing you realize many things. While narrating it to yourself or while you're narrating it to someone else. So, do you think it's a cop-out from the writers that मैं पहले story भेजता हूँ, अगर उनको अच्छा लगा और अगर वो मुझे sign करते हैं, जो आज तक हुआ नहीं है कभी, किसी नए writer के साथ, कि मैं story के basis पे sign हो गया और मेरे को producer बोलते हैं जा बेटा लिख, तेरे पास 1 साल है, आराम से.
नहीं, I have signed, so I can tell you that.
So people, we have
a good producer. I mean, Devashish is here. We're working with on multiple things. He's with SWA. I remember I had to convince him because he was doing very well for TV. I said, please write. I know, but it's an OTT, it's a show. The money is less, but you will thank me a few years down the line. I think 3 years back, I think we had the chat. 4 years back, and I think he can thank me now because of the way he's doing. And his name, I have recommended it to other producers because we like his writing. So it has happened with both stories and spec. I'll give you another example. I was with Jungli when Stree Rog Vibhag, which released as Dr. G. It was done by new writers. Saurabh, because Saurabh's wife is Gainak and another writer. They were completely new writers. So, that you could realize that it's not well written, the script. A lot of time that also happens. But you should have the insight to see, there's a great story there, a sexist, misogynist man in a woman's world. But can that story becomes better? And then I told them, will you guys be open to getting somebody else with you? I mean, see if you are open with it, if the creatives align. I'm not forcing कि मैं ले लूँगा, मैं काम करूँगा. That doesn't work, And they understood it, And then of course I moved to Dharma, then pandemic, and it takes time. And then by that time it became, Ayushmann doing kind of film became a genre, that which was like a huge plus point 4 years back, 5 years back. Now it has become a run of the mill. So people are saying, it's again another Ayushmann film. I said, no, but when we started, it wasn't, I did Badhai Do that time also with Jungli. That is one of the first genres that this Ayushmann started. So a lot of times that happens that you have to see कि अच्छा story है क्या, screenplay में, script में है. There's something, there. But are the writers open to? A lot of times writers are gango नहीं यही script है, यही बनानी है. Then it's your call. So you have to be open both sides. So there's plus and minus both sides. But what happens from the producer point of view, from any studio point of view, they'll tell it's much easier to react on stories. If it's a 5-pager, 10-pager, 20-pager compared to 120 pages, every studio will tell you, like we have 30 things in development, 30 scripts in development. It takes time to read and the team read and then you discuss internally and then you want to discuss with the writers. So वक्त लगता है. Whereas stories is faster to react and see कि अच्छा merit है, not merit है. So they're plus and minus both.
But not just you, but do you think that a new writer pitching just a story, it will be easier for a producer to say yes or a no to that writer, or they would want a full script at least?
Yeah, they would want full script or a full script. I mean, if you are not keen on, if बहुत confident हो अपने story के बारे में, just write 10 pages or 20 pages, first 30 pages of the screenplay. You know, that is enough to get a sense कि how is your writing, अच्छा है, नहीं है. But if you can write 120 pages, great. Because, but you know, I mean, I understand a lot of writers might not want to, क्या पैसा नहीं है, signing नहीं है, you सब छोड़ के आप spec लिख रहे हो. You know, that is a, and उसका clarity नहीं है. Film बनाने में 100 things, you know, 100 things will align and then, you know, fall in place. So I understand both the things, but agar, a lot of producers will ask for that. You know, first write, what we do intentionally believe कि अरे जिसकी story है that person should write. But a lot of times I mean, the craft is not there or थोड़ा वक्त लगता है. So we say, अच्छा, write 10, 20, 30 pages. We get a mid-level or senior writer and work with that, you know. So that you can judge based on these pages if somebody writes.
Can I add to that? It's also so genre dependent. Like some genres can be really explored well in treatments, and it can be a 20-pager, and like a thriller, for example, or like, you know, like a film with a very like defined narrative. But some films are so much about mood, about dialogues, about moments, that there is no way you would really understand till you really read the script. So actually the writer herself should know what they're selling. Like, for example, if it's some concept-based, a high concept-based film, I think it can be sold to a lot of people through
Mainstream
a 25-pager. Yeah.
Most mainstream films,
Yeah.
a story pe you can easily, somebody will bet on. But a film like Gamak Ghar, I don't know how many of you say, it's an indie film, first time filmmaker, बहुत खूबसूरत film है. But you know, it's about 3 generations moving out of the house, it's streaming on movie. But it's such a lovely story, a lovely film. But if you see a story, you can write in 5 pages. It's 3 generations coming, it's almost naturalistic, documentary style of filmmaking. But usme story or screenplay, script, I mean, I'm sure they must have written, but it will be very difficult to judge based on that, you know. So I think mainstream story is easy to put a bet on, mainstream films within the spaces that we work on.
हम बात कर रहे हैं genres की, high concept films की. Aren't there too many genres and too many classifications that we have made, like a multiplex film, like a Masi film, and a OTT film? मतलब कहानियाँ तो कहानियाँ होती है ना. तो अगर मैं कहानी सुना रहा हूँ, तो वो अच्छी लगनी चाहिए ऑडियंस को. उनको लगना चाहिए कि हाँ, ये मेरी ज़िंदगी से किसी तरह जुड़ी हुई है, या मैं इसको इंटरेस्टेड हूँ देखने में. तो हम लिखते वक्त क्यों ये सोचते हैं कि ये मल्टीप्लेक्स है, कि ये कौन सोचता है? ये प्रोड्यूसर सोचता है, ये राइटर सोचता है, या एक्टर सोचता है, या कौन सोचता है?
ऑडियंस भी सोच रहे हैं, ऑडियंस भी बोलते हैं ये तो मल्टीप्लेक्स फिल्म है, ये तो
नहीं, ऑडियंस को हमने ये लैंग्वेज दी है बात करने के लिए. हम सिर्फ ट्रेड की बातें करते हैं, हम सिर्फ बॉक्स ऑफिस की बात करते हैं, हम फिल्म तो डिस्कस ही नहीं करते.
No, but the reality of the system, we can't be, you know, completely blind or oblivious to it. Sadly, there is the business side of it and there is the creative side of it. As writers here, I am sure हर कोई यही कोशिश करता है कि जो मेरे अंदर से कहानी आ रही है वो किसी ना किसी तरह बन जाए और बाहर आ जाए. अब वो थिएटर में आए, ओटीटी में आए, या मल्टीप्लेक्स में चले या नहीं चले, वो दैट ओनली प्रोबेबली गिव्स यू द लेग्स कि बाकी आगे का काम आएगा कि नहीं, आगे मुझे कहानियां बोलने का मौका मिलेगा कि नहीं. सक्सेस और क्रिटिकल सक्सेस और कमर्शियल सक्सेस विल प्रोबेबली ओनली डिटरमाइन दैट. बट इफ लाइक पर्सनली स्पीकिंग, मैरी कॉम के पहले मैं 2011 से, सॉरी 2011 नहीं, 2002-3 से कोशिश कर रहा था टू बी राइटर. एंड द ओनली सपना वाज कि एक बार नाम आ जाए यार, स्क्रीन पे नाम आ जाए, उसके बाद मैं मर भी सकता हूँ, मुझे टेंशन नहीं है. नहीं, और फिर उस फिल्म के लिए जो पैसे मिले, तो मतलब मैं यहाँ बोल भी नहीं सकता हूँ, अंजुम विल किल मी कि हाउ कुड यू साइन दैट काइंड ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, you know. But I cried when I was offered whatever that amount was. And then I reasoned with myself, Saiwyn, what is more important to you? One name comes there, you can multiply the money that you've gotten now. But that's the primary focus. And that's the story I wanted to say. I worked with the story for 4 years, 5 years, had a lot of creative battles with the director, with the producer, with the actor, and stood my ground like as if I have nothing to lose. Because that is the attitude that only you can have. Because if we become subservient, or we say, oh, producer hum pe meherbani kar raha hai, humko chance diya script likhne ka, it's a mutually beneficial engagement and arrangement. But the dream, what did you start out with? You tell those stories. Yes, agar Dharma, for example, usko theatrical ka potential samajhta hai, so they will go all out, no? They will get the best actor or the actor that's perfect for it and put it out there. Now, thankfully, we have platforms. As writers, now we're not bound by even the system. Yes, we need the system to give us the money or the thing that we want. But a lot of youngsters these days are just making the stories that they want on their phones, and so editing software and grading software and music software, everything available, and they're putting it out there. Now, what is important? It's the voice that's important. Find a way to tell your story. No backers, do what Sridhar's done. That went for it and doing it is his own way. Yes, now, at the same time, we also want employment, we also want the money, we also want the fame. Then as writers, then you have to make your compromises as to what is important, when, where, what situation you are in, all that taken into consideration. नहीं तो भाई जो लैंग्वेज है वो तो हमेशा स्लॉट कैटेगरी तो होगा ही ना. मसाला फिल्म बोलो तो वो तो कब से चला आ रहा है. मसाला फिल्म है, इंडी फिल्म है, आर्ट हाउस फिल्म है.
Hitesh, वो category I think is not for when you are writers. वो जो बेचना होता ना, then you should be clear, because to be very honest, film English में बहुत अच्छा word है film बनाने के लिए, इसको hustling. हिंदी में अगर करेंगे तो सामने वाला इधर बहुत स्मार्ट हो जो आपके स्क्रिप्ट समझ जाए, या बेवकूफ़ बनाना है उसको, चाहे वो स्टूडियो हो, एक्टर हो, प्रोड्यूसर हो, तभी फिल्म बनती है. सो इंग्लिश वर्ड साउंड्स फैंसियर, आई यूज दैट हसलिंग. सो वो हसलिंग करने के लिए यू शुड नो कि व्हाट आर यू सेलिंग टू द पर्सन. कई बार होता है कि सम प्लेटफॉर्म से प्रोड्यूसर्स, ओ वी हैव 4 फिल्म्स इस स्पेस में, इस जॉनर में, थ्रिलर, दिस दैट, इज देयर समथिंग इन ड्रामेडी, इज देयर इन समथिंग इन कॉमेडी. भले आपकी फिल्म ड्रामेडी ना हो, इट्स मोर ऑफ अ ड्रामा, इज नो बट इज ड्रामा विद ह्यूमर. सो बेचते समय इट्स अ स्मार्टनेस टू नो.
नहीं, मैं उसी पे आ रहा हूँ, मैं एक्चुअली इसी पे आ रहा हूँ, एंड दैट इज द बेसिक question that I want all of you to answer is that हम कहानी प्रोड्यूसर को बेच रहे हैं. हम ये नहीं सोच रहे कि ऑडियंस आ रही है कि नहीं आ रही है, वो हम प्रोड्यूसर पे छोड़ रहे हैं. मैंने बेच दी अपनी कहानी, मेरा काम खत्म हो गया. अब वो डायरेक्टर बना लेगा उसको, प्रोड्यूसर उसको रिलीज कर देगा, पर ऑडियंस आ नहीं रही है देखने के लिए. वो रिलेट नहीं कर पा रही है उस कहानी से, वो उसकी कहानी है ही नहीं. I just saw in that Amitabh Bachchan film festival, I saw Diwar. It was a dockyard worker's story. Yeah. I don't know whether you want to classify it as a massy film or as an angry young man or as a whatever. Everyone was enjoying it. Everyone was liking it. And I'm assuming that at that point of time, it had a powerful effect on the audience. It was a story which people wanted to see, and they felt that it's my story. I think we are just stopping ourselves somewhere that we are selling the story to the producer or a director or an actor. What do you think, Atika?
It's possible, like if you want us to really put a finger on it, perhaps there is a tiredness and a little fatigue with the kind of formulaic storytelling, but can writers be blamed for it? I'm not sure. Because
no, I'm not here. We are not here to put
because
blame
I
on
think
anything.
in terms of original voice, I just also wanted to quickly say a few things. Like I really believe that the producers are also absolutely aware and cognizant of who they hire for what jobs. Like it's impossible to hire me for a film that's not in alignment with my own independent voice. Like I was hired by Dharma to collaborate on Guilty, which is exactly the space which I have been known for. I'm politically extremely visible for my feminism and something. So that it was a perfect marriage. So he did not So when Soumen made that choice, he made that choice knowing what I did before, what I actually am as a person. So he respected that. And we managed to deliver to the brief. Did we make some compromises while working with the OTT? Yes. But those were creative solutions. Those were creative solutions which we were trying to find a middle ground of what the idea always is when you work in a commercial platform is that 10 पैसे की बात 2 पैसे में बतानी है ताकि ज़्यादा लोगों को समझ आए. Now, ये समझने से मेरी ओरिजिनलिटी कम नहीं हो रही है. ये एक्सरसाइज करने से मेरी कीमत कम नहीं हो रही है, मुझे नहीं लगता है. तो दैट्स वेयर आई वांटेड टू कम फ्रॉम कि और हाँ एक फटीक एक ऑडियंस टायर्ड है, बट देयर कुड बी अदर फैक्टर्स कंट्रीब्यूटिंग टू दिस. आई थिंक थिएट्रिकल इज ऑल्सो नॉट डूइंग वेल एट द मोमेंट बिकॉज आदत छूट गई है थिएटर जाने की. बहुत एक्सपेंसिव है बिजनेस, दैट एज अ बिजनेस हैज़ बिकम सो क्रिपलिंग फॉर अ मिडिल क्लास पर्सन. 3-4 हज़ार रुपये की पिक्चर देखना, 500 रुपये का पॉपकॉर्न खाना, इट इज़ बिकम इम्पॉसिबल. सो there was this one day जब tickets were being sold for half the price or one for the price. Every film in the theaters was fully house full. Like it got sold out, which clearly was a sign that अरे ऐसे महीने के इतना 2 दिन भी करो तो भी your film will gonna do wonders. So somewhere it's a multiple thing where I don't think it's the originality of the voice of the writers. I think all writers are bursting with original ideas. The only thing before I pass on the mic is that the quick thing that I want to say is that, of course, I have original ideas. That is the reason why I got picked in the first place. I went and narrated my original ideas 15 years ago to Yash Raj. They were really impressed, but they said, we cannot make this film because we are not that platform. However, there's something to your voice which we would like to employ. Would you like to do what we are doing? And of course, I would take the job, right? Because I have to pay my rent and do other things. So of course, that's how the journey began. And do I miss? There is an existential crisis. Like, of course, I feel tired trying to write to the brief of other people. But what the other mature way of looking at it is, when will the craft that I am exercising will always come with collaboration unless I become my own director. Even when I become my own director, I'll have producers to answer to. Even if I send it to the film festival, I'll still have like someone's approval out there. Eventually, it will go to the audience. Will they like it? So it can't be a self-indulgent process. It is a give and take, a creative process. So at some level, if we expand this philosophically, that battle will never end. I cannot write just for myself. Because writing as an expression is exactly like a more potent version of language. You speak because you want to dialogue. You speak because you want to be understood. So I think the work that I have attracted in the last 12 years has made me strengthen my voice. I have found the right collaborators. I have found people who have actually channeled my pain. They have seen that wound in me and they have known how to harness it for their work. I'm so grateful to the industry. So I don't know, it's a double-edged sword. And the way I am looking at graduating in my career is that, of course, I have these autonomous stories, but my fear has been that no one else will be able to tell them the way I will tell them. So maybe 3 years down the line when I direct, is when I'll write my autonomous scripts and like to creatively control what I want to say with the structuring of what I want to communicate. But before that, I would have leveraged enough power for people to trust me because I've consistently worked for 15 years and people will be able to trust me little more easily than they would be able to trust me 15 years ago when I came to the industry with the same script. I think they trust me more now. And fair enough, if I were in their place, I think I would be equally. So I think it's not that bad.
No, I'm not saying it's bad. We are just having a discussion in terms of the current situation. Yeah. Like I keep wondering why a Pushpa works for so many people. And why doesn't a certain Hindi film...
I think there's a separate panel with Anjum on that.
No, I'm talking about maybe we are not able to...
Hitesh, that I would contest what you're saying. It's not necessarily the Pushpa or other films that you're saying, oh, those are personal stories and these are not.
No, I'm not saying that.
So, no.
Just let me finish. What I'm saying is, कि क्या हम अपनी कहानियों में वो हीरो नहीं दे रहे ऑडियंस को जिससे वो रिलेट कर पाते हैं?
So then, are you writing exactly for the audience? Okay, Pushpa works, so I'll write another Pushpa, or I will
तो
write
इस-
another Shubmangal Jada Savdhan.
नो इसका मतलब है कहीं ना कहीं मेरे एज अ राइटर और ऑडियंस के बीच में एक डिस्कनेक्ट है.
Possible, but not necessarily every film has to do 200, 400 crore.
No,
when
no,
you say
no. I'm
audience
not even
disconnect-
talking about commercial this thing.
No,
I'm
but
talking about
Hitesh,
the
when
relation.
you say audience connect, what is the manifestation? If I make a film, which suppose it has run 5 shows and 500 people have loved it, that is a connect with 500 people. No? When you're saying a Pushpa, okay, 50 lakh people have seen, suppose, and 50 lakh people, so then the metric is the number. I don't agree to that. You know, you will find your audience if a film that you think is personal and is important needs to be telling, but it doesn't have a wider appeal, so what? Why should that film be, why should this film be compared with the Pushpa? It's
Definitely.
a personal film. So then you're contesting the same things. I think, you know, in the mainstream space, the challenge is, can I tell a story where I connect with, and can it also entice an actor, and can it also have a wider appeal? You know, that mainstream bracket becomes problem, but not necessarily कि मेरी film connect नहीं हो रही है, या फिर मेरी film is doing much lesser number, or whatever you say the metric is. So I'm not telling personal story. I don't agree to that. You know, why should there be only one metric? And that's why, you know, the OTT or the digital films, you know, there's no numbers calculation. Some of the films do, you know, like Suni's film, Ballet Boys, you know, lovely small film. I mean, if you see, Ari, it's not like Pushpa. Ari, why should it be like Pushpa? It's her story, and that's why it's great. So I don't agree to that is the only metric to find out is an audience connect. You know, I don't agree because, you know, what film going audience, what you're talking about when Bachchan Saab's films, people are watching, and the film going audience and the demographic and the division with the cities and the money and the population, it has divided. It's far more diverse, you know. So I would not bracket that audience with a connect or not connect.
Yeah, I just want to say that you see YouTube videos, the films, they're not just YouTube videos, films put on YouTube, and they get 30 million views. So theatrically, if you're releasing, you'll never get that kind of a numbers, you know. So I think every format has its value, and every film has its own audience per se. I just want to touch upon something which Atika mentioned, if I can. Basically, like, a lot of people have stories, but you need to develop it. Most of the scriptwriters basically do not want to develop the story, or basically it's a craft. People need to work on it, maybe for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. People do not realize the value of that. That's one. And so a lot of the LGBTQ filmmakers have stories, and they tell it badly. That's the reason out of the 60 films we get, we program only 30 of them. But one of the things which I found problematic is like non-LGBTQ scriptwriters. They are writing the scripts not based on any, maybe just one experience. They met a transgender person on the street, and they had an interaction, and they base an entire film out of that interaction. That falls flat, you know, because I think they need to research more. They need to talk to the LGBTQ community or whatever communities their stories are about, you know. They need to approach them, talk to them, and involve them, you know. Only then I would say there's a universality of stories. So whenever I make a film, it's not about one character. There are 10 Kartiks who are put into one Kartik, you know. Many people who stories which are put into one character stories, that makes the story universal, you know. So I think the LGBTQ scriptwriters should basically work on the craft, and the non-LGBTQ scriptwriters should basically talk to LGBTQ community and understand what the challenges are, get to the depth of it, and then flesh out and write a story. That's what I would, I think really important to talk not just about the story, but the craft of writing here.
I think I agree with Soumen when he said that the metrics cannot be the same. And as writers, we shouldn't burden ourselves with the eventual outcome. कि audience आएगी कि नहीं theater में. उसके लिए there is almost a 2-year process to go through to minimum. I'm being very hopeful and optimistic. That's my problem. But you know, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. We shouldn't burden ourselves with that. Our cross to bear is, this is the story, whether it's work for hire or whether it's your own story. Even on the work for hire, you choose that job out of 2 things. One is मजबूरी कि घर चलाना है, लिख लेते हैं, या आपको सच्ची में उस स्टोरी में इतना मजा आया कि आपको पता है कि आप इसमें कुछ कर सकते हो. So then your voice will come through that also. Or if it's your own story, then 100% you should have your voice. you burden yourself only with that cross. And like Sridhar said, that research on your material, work on the material, meet as many people in that same zone, watch as many films, read as many books, and at the same time, retain your voice in that, because what excited you about the story, automatically your voice will come into it. There's no worry about it. What is the process after that? Then you just have to be calm, collected, introspective about it, that yes, it's gone to a producer, it's gotten to a director, it's gotten to an actor, they'll all say certain things. What is, choose your battles in terms of what you can, creative solutions, not a compromise, but a creative solution. They might give you a bad idea. Don't just chapo that bad idea, no. You are a writer, you've written the scenes, you know the characters, you know the plant and payoff. Come up with an idea that stems from that idea, that जब आप producer or director को बोले ना, सर ये आपका idea था, वो बोला खुश हो गया, ये मेरा idea है script में. लेकिन आपने उस idea को better किया और आपके जो tone zone में है, उसमें आपने ढाल दिया. So as writers, as screenwriters, we are manipulating emotions, we are manipulating the audience. So then it's not difficult to manipulate the people who are also.
You have to be creative apart
You
from
have to
the
be
paper.
smart about it, and that is one thing that the writers need to learn apart from writing and honing your craft. These are the tricks that you need to learn. It is not that you're lying, it's not that you're cheating. You are just finding a better way to get your work done. Hustling, jugaad, jhol, jo bhi bolo. But yeah, that's.
I'm just using my age and my seniority to butt in, if you don't mind. Soumen and Saiwyn, I have a slight thing to point out, so to clarify what you people said. Hustling to get your script made, yeah, sure. What Saiwyn is referring to, don't worry about the audience, you make sure that your voice is retained. But Saiwyn, this is a communication thing. It's not expression for the sake of expression. Okay, what they were referring to, that it is also something that you want should reach. By reach, I don't mean that it should get made and it comes into 1200 screens. I'm talking about the audience which comes in, whether they're 500 or 50 lakh, they're able to relate to it. Okay, wo diwar ki baat ho rahi thi ke, they felt that it was their story, they could identify. So it's also about that, no? So the point is, we are the audience and we are the writer. So it's the writer as the viewer and the viewer as the writer. So when you're writing, you're also checking whether what you're seeking to achieve in terms of the engagement or the impact on the audience is happening or not. You cannot discount that, because that is what the field is about. Okay. So therefore, वो फिर बनेगी कब और कौन बनाएगा, that is a separate matter. But when you're writing, you're already speaking to the audience. So no, I wanted that clarification, because I know you mean that, but it didn't come through.
No. What I meant was that as.
दूसरी बात, एक second. Soumen, तुम जब बोल रहे हो कि भाई आप फिल्म बना रहे हो कि भैया 500 लोग भी अगर देखने वाले हैं, तो 500 लोग के साथ आप engage तो कर रहे हो ना, लेकिन 500 लोग की फिल्म कोई बनाता नहीं है ना. The point is, it's an industry. अगर वो खुद अपने आईफोन पे बना रहा हो और वो 500 लोग देख, then there's no problem at all. But अगर सोमेन के पास स्क्रिप्ट आती है जो उसको लगता है कि ये 500 लोग जरूर देखेंगे, ये मतलब जो रहते हैं इस पर्टिकुलर नीश में या न्यूक्लियर साइंटिस्ट है, वो नहीं बनाएगा उस फिल्म को, तुम भी नहीं बनाओगे. So therefore it is important for what Hitesh is saying to keep in mind, does it have a certain larger appeal or not, a larger engagement or not. That I feel is important.
Correct,
too.
yeah.
So the part of stories includes that definition. Is it a story which is going to appeal? ऐसे तो बच्चे को सुनाने को कहानी तो मेरे पास बहुत सारी है, लेकिन I cannot make a film out of that. That's all I was wanting to sort of point out.
No, I agree with you when you say that, but my point is, a writer or a good writer will automatically be attached with the material and detached when you have to use the mind that you're an audience. And then, of course, then you have your core group of people who you narrate those ideas to, see whether they like it or not. But at the end of the day, you have to probably believe in your craft and the fact that you're telling the story in the right way with whoever is collaborating. Because personally speaking, it has happened with me when I wrote the script of Mary Com. Everyone is saying, "Kaun Manipuri boxer, lady boxer की कहानी देखने जाएगा?" But before the film release, I am jumping in the air just because that my film is coming out and I'm saying picture chalne wali hai yaar. Picture chalne wali hai yaar. It could be my naivety, optimism or you know whatever. नीरजा के टाइम पे अरे कौन सोनम कपूर की पिक्चर देखने जाएगा? The studio is worried and talking to me like that. I'm like, don't worry, the film is going to work because it's brilliant and the story is working. The confidence that it is going to appeal to the audience needs to come from you. Of course, you cannot be lying to yourself or faking it to yourself. You need to be cognizant of that fact. But if you've done your craft well and the collaborators have pitched in the right manner without taking your voice away, without breaking the structure in such a manner, the screenplay in such a manner that one of the 5 unshakable pillars are shaken and then you know that there is damadol, either problem hai boss. But we cannot burden the writers with the fact because every writer is writing the story so that it reaches out to the audience. So the point of the matter is, yes, और वो 1200 स्क्रीन में रिलीज नहीं होगी तो मैं स्क्रिप्ट नहीं लिखूंगा क्या? मतलब OTT में आएगी सीधा तो मैं नहीं.
That's not what I was saying.
No. It's about the relatability, not about the box
we are,
office.
as writers, we are aware of it, and that is why we try to write a script. We might fail, we might succeed.
But Saiwyn, I think I'll butt in here and say that actually some of this is also come to us with experience. Like we have actually been around for a really long time, and so what you are actually saying right now is something that we can do now. We can manage or navigate our way around because we also been around for a while. For a younger writer who's just starting out with an original idea, these are very floundering areas, like, you know,
that's why I'm saying for newer writers, all the more, it should not be a burden because when Mary Kom was my first film, I was not experienced. I didn't know what I thought I could write, and that's the belief I went with. That's it.
But it is an aberration and not a norm. Because normally...
I'm only speaking from personal experience, but at the end of the day, I would like to encourage all writers here who are
Sure. No,
believe in your craft. If you're slacking somewhere, if your core group of friends say that, you know, it's something is not working, just give them that much credit and see if it's what they're saying is right or wrong, if they're honest or they're lying or whatever, and hone your craft as much as possible and hope that your story is appealing to the kind of people that you want to tell the story to.
And you know, I agree to what Hitesh is saying, and I don't agree exactly what Anjum is saying because I'll go by personal example. The films that we have not calculated, I mean, who knows which film have wider reach? You know, now we know Kyacha, a Pushpa or some films you can tick these boxes, but one of the first films that I did was Talwar. You know, that time there was no reference for a true crime film, kaise kare, kya kare, rights ka issue hai. Will that film have wider reach? It didn't have. It made 30 crores, but it's a film that we all are very proud of. Similarly, when we are putting together Razi, that was, I mean, there was again no reference for a female-led us tarah ki spy film. Alia wasn't big. That time the budget was 30. We were struggling, 30, 32. Where is the recovery? Music nahi hai, romance nahi hai. So, you know, those are the challenges. And then I don't know kitna wide appeal hoga. We did research and say, oh, research se lag raha hai, by the time 70, it can hit 70, 80 number. It went up to hit 120 number. Nobody in this, I mean, we could not predict, I could not predict. Same with Badhai Ho. Badhai Ho was the first one. Yeah, Badhai Ho. I mean, it's an incident that happened in my school that I remembered, and we were trying to do a family dramedy. So the idea came from there. Again, Ayushman wasn't that big. Us tarah ke parents having sex, I mean, it's a taboo subject. Which family will come to watch? I mean, I don't think anyone would thought that
No, definitely.
it has a wider appeal.
But therein lies the answer. What even Atika mentioned, that whenever a new product or a new voice or a new...
So for me, I think that as long as the story is engaging, as long as you think, okay, you are getting, the emotions are working for you, the story is landing well, the engagement is there, I think the story will have legs. And now the best part is because our creative development for Dharma and Dharmatic is same. So I know, okay, this can be theatrical because this looks like a bigger potential. Some stories might not be, like suppose a Guilty, you know, which is like, oh, is great for OTT, might not have that kind of wider audience or that kind of budget. So that gives us the luxury ki kahan pe jaye. But a lot of times to calculate and people calculating, does it have that reach every story? I think it's a difficult one.
No. Writers shouldn't do that. They shouldn't calculate, but they should just look at the story and एक जो अपने आप में एक जो मंथन होता है लिखते वक्त कि ये जो मैं कह रहा हूँ, सबसे पहले तो मुझे लगता है ये फिगर आउट करना चाहिए कि इस कहानी के थ्रू मैं कहना क्या चाह रहा हूँ. मैं कहना क्या चाह रहा हूँ, चाहे वो कहानी मुझे प्रोड्यूसर ने दी हो कि यार ये कहानी है तू बताएगा, तो मेरे को सबसे पहले ये देखना होगा कि मैं इस कहानी में क्या ऐड कर सकता हूँ, मेरा पर्सपेक्टिव क्या है, मेरी वॉइस किस तरह से इस कहानी को उठा सकती है. आपने भी कुछ सोच के एज अ प्रोड्यूसर मुझे चुना होगा और मुझे भी उसी तरह कहानी को चुनना होगा, बिकॉज अ कहानी इज अ मीडियम थ्रू विच आई वॉन्ट टू से सर्टन थिंग्स. तो ये जो कुछ कहने की बात है कि मेरे को कुछ कहना है, वो कहीं ना कहीं तो कम नहीं हो रहा इस सब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स और OTT और यू नो द वेरियस क्लासिफिकेशन. आई वॉन्टेड टू कम टू दैट कि मैं जो कहना चाह रहा हूँ क्या वो मैं भूल गया हूँ. Why you wanted to become a writer? Why did you want to? Why did you leave journalism?
Okay, so I'll say that even I mean मेरे को ये बोलना है कि मैंने छपाक जैसी पिक्चर हम लोगों ने 2020 में रिलीज़ करी थी एंड दैट वाज अ गुड ईयर फॉर मी बिकॉज बहुत सालों का काम एक साथ आ गया छपाक एंड गिल्टी बैक टू बैक. सो सडनली फॉर सम टाइम यू नो हाउ दैट बबल इज देयर अराउंड यू आफ्टर रिलीजेस. सो आई डिड अट्रैक्ट अ लॉट ऑफ वर्क एंड अ लॉट ऑफ lucrative work from mainstream cinema, and that was my testing point when you say कि I continue to stay very true to my voice. Like I struggled with finding my identity, my voice, defending my politics, my gaze, something I developed very carefully and cautiously for over 12 years. And for me, that was very easy to like go and sign a film for like worth 80 lakhs. But I would have completely compromised who I was or what I was actually appreciated for or what I felt gratified with. And it wasn't easy. Who doesn't want to have money in Bombay? Like, you know. And I have actually after that, like my career is a testament to the fact that I've continued to go for projects where what I want to say is also on board, or what they are bringing, and if they are only in agreement with what I want to say and they like it enough that we go forward. I am actually, so in terms of decision making, I think I've just been the same person who I was at the beginning of my career, and I've continued to ask this question to myself every day, thank God for my self-doubt, that why am I here and what am I doing and what am I saying? So, because the project, once it starts becoming extremely unwieldy with respect to a multiplication of voice, which kind of like, you know that by the end of it, this is going to be a compromise at a level which I'll be very embarrassed by. Not so much aesthetics or craft or budgeting or casting. It's not never that. It's about politics. Like if this film is going to compromise my politics in a way where it's going to represent me by the end of it of who I'm not. Like for example, I walked away from a war film because from the beginning of the brief to the middle point, it became a jingoistic film, and I am not in agreement with that politics, and I'll never play to that opportunism. So I walked away from a very lucrative project, and it costed me like 8 months of my life and the amount of work that I had to do learning that genre. So in the beginning, I was extremely excited because I thought I'm going to work on a male narrative finally. Like I was excited. I want to diversify, but it's the market. I'm not really blaming anyone because all this is extremely human, you know, and things are evolving at such a fast speed in the times that we are living in that nobody can define what's really going on. So I would say that's the kind of tough decisions that all of us have made for our careers. And you can see in Sridhar's voice, mine, or even Saiwyn's, like there is a unified voice in our work, in our filmography, even when we have worked on commissioned assignments. So I think we have managed to find and collaborate or like continue to say what we want to also say as independent writers. मुझे तो time ही नहीं मिल रहा है honestly. Like deadlines कब खत्म होंगी, मैं कब अपना लिखूंगी, मुझे पता ही नहीं है. मेरे को नहीं पता है. And क्योंकि शायद मैं इतना charge नहीं करती तो मुझे काम ज़्यादा मिलता है.
नहीं, correct. Commission work definitely gives any writer the freedom to work on a spec script. अगर आपको commission काम मिल रहा है, तो only when you do the commission work will you be.
तो तभी मेरे रिस्पेक्ट वर्क की वैल्यू होती क्योंकि जो मैं लेके आई थी वो तो सबने पढ़ के बोला ये तो बनेगा नहीं कभी.
Correct. So Soumen, there is a question for you. What is it that you and your team look for when judging submissions from new writers? What should new writers keep in mind?
I mean, it's good writing. The simple answer would be, now how you define good writing? For the stories, I think it's important to have a novelty factor. And that is a challenging, novelty factor, but still in mainstream space. That is where the challenge lies. Unless I'm doing it for one of the OTT platforms, then it's slightly, the genres become broader, but they're also coming down to same, more or less right now. So I mean, and also, I tell everyone that even if you come with a script that doesn't work out, sometimes it takes time. Right now, I have a film for Amazon on floor. It was in development for 5 years because we could not find a actor or a producer, or it takes time. But if it's good writing, you will get a lot of work. Good writing gets you work, not necessarily if that gets made. So we read everything just to spot if the writers are good and if the writing is good. So yeah.
Sridhar, one question for you. How important is personal experience in telling a story?
Personal experience, as I said, like it's only till a point where you kind of have an idea for a story, but it has to be substantiated by other experiences around you. You cannot just thrive on your own personal experience. You need to validate it and also reinforce it with other experiences around you. So I think, yeah, it should be a mixture of both personal, but you need not be a queer person to write a queer story. Very much valid. I mean,
Correct, yeah.
other people should also write queer films. But I would say if they're writing, they should collaborate with queer people to tell the stories. I just want to talk about what Anjum sir said. I mean, what is a successful script or what is a successful film? Like my film, Evening Shadows, was made at a budget of 50 lakh rupees. And it was sold to Netflix and earned its 60 lakh rupees. Fine. So I would call it a success. So I'm not making a 20 crore film.
Correct.
Because that particular script did not validate a 20 crore budget. So I would say, but even if it's successful, are more producers or coming to my door? Not yet. So I think the time has to be coming hopefully very soon. Yeah.
Saiwyn, we have a question for you. You've written various stories inspired by true events and biopics. How do you make events in someone else's life your own story? That's a very interesting.
So what excited me with Mary Com's story or Neerja's story is, for me, for example, Mary Com's life, in a way, kind of made me think of my mom. My mom was a widow at the age of 24 with 2 boys, and she was uneducated and had to go and work in other people's houses. And she was young, she was pretty. When I grew up and I understood her life and her problems, I felt that my mother was fighting every day in the boxing ring of life. So Mary Com's story, in a way, kind of fit that mold, but the physical boxing ring became a metaphor for my mom's life. So then that is the example I'm giving, that there was my story in it, my voice in it, but I'm telling someone else's stories because I felt that there is a synergy. So when Mary Com is fighting patriarchy, fighting societal pressures, then she becomes a wife and a mother, and then doesn't know whether, she remembers the ring like it was, or do people remember her or not. That validation, and then the fact of proving to yourself that you are who you are, that fire is burning within you. That story kind of, in a way, thematically was my mom's story. So that is when, probably my voice came in. But at the same time, an exciting story because I used to follow Mary Com's life since I was in college, reading in that small columns of her victories and her world championships and all that jazz. And I felt, why is not telling her story? But when I got down to writing it, somewhere from the inside of me and my mind and subconscious, that was driving me. And I didn't do it forcefully. I only, once I wrote the script and I kind of, internalized it, I'm like, oh, probably this is why I was so motivated to pitch this story to the producers or the director and said, this is the story we need to make. Because I was 100% convinced, because subconsciously there was some bit of me in it. Like Neerja also, for example, had those elements. Like my father was a Rajesh Khanna fan. And so when we're thinking of what will be the driving factor through the film, Rajesh Khanna is he's done so many films where he's dying, but he's smiling through it. And, and my father was a fan of Rajesh Khanna. And because Neerja in real life was a fan of Pink Floyd. But we said, okay, she's a fan of someone, but then we kind of contextualized, because we wanted to contextualize the time in which the film is set. So Rajesh Khanna fan and Anand and all that jazz. And somewhere that subconsciously my father's liking, and he used to make me sit and my younger brother sit and watch all of Rajesh Khanna movies, and we used to enjoy it with him. So that is that one memory that's stuck in my head. So then we used the dialogues of the films that Rajesh Khanna mouthed, you know, yeah, I hate Pushpa, I hate tears, or, you know, Zindagi Badi Nahi Lambi Honi Chahiye, all those things. So it's my experiences, but in the context of a real life scenario, which makes the characters relatable then. And that's why probably those films worked.
I have one tippany to add to this quick one, is that ये सिर्फ writers को मैंने देखा है अब हमें कटघरे में खड़ा किया जाता है और पूछा जाता है तुम्हारी voice क्या है. The nature of the work is so collaborative. There are lyricists. They are never asked कि तुम कैसे इस picture को देख के इस पे respond करते हो through your lyrics. Because that's the story did not come from the lyricist, but the lyricist is responding with such originality. The musician who responds to the nature of the theme, like he responds with his craft. The actor who comes and brings his craft to the material written. The director who probably is not even very conversant with what, sometimes they get new script, like they have not written the scripts. So they get a script, but then they make it their own. Like Fincher's, every film of Fincher is an example of that. As screenwriters, not as a writer, as screenwriter, my first duty to my job is my understanding of narrative and structure. And do I bring that as craft to your story? Yes, I do. So I'm doing my job. Okay, I'm not a great writer, but all of us, we are really trying to bring that to the table in a line of work which is very collaborative. I can't be bigger than my craft, and that is what will make a good film. So that's, I wanted to say that sometimes I have seen these writers get cornered and then they ask, "Teri kahan hai?" But I'm like,
पता नहीं अतिका को क्यों लग रहा है कि हम राइटर्स को कटघरे में खड़ा कर रहे हैं, पर अगर हम कर भी रहे हैं तो राइटर का हक है बाहर आके बोलने का, जज साहब मैं बेकसूर हूँ. इसी के साथ हम ये पैनल समाप्त करते हैं. I think lots of questions have been answered. The way we look at success of a film, the way we put our own personal experiences in a story which is not entirely from our life, the way a film is, or a story or a script is judged at the producer's table, and how one can, you know, live a balanced professional life as a writer by doing commissioned work as well as spec work while retaining your voice. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you for
Hitesh.
being a part of this.
Your questions was really tough.